Today we'll be giving our first impressions on Grounded, a new survival game for Xbox and PC. If you do enjoy today's video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel for videos on more games in the future. Welcome to Grounded, a new crafting survival game developed by Obsidian Entertainment and published by their newly arranged sugar daddy, Xbox Game Studios. The game is currently in development and available through Steam Early Access, or Xbox Game Pass and Xbox Game Pass Ultimate members can download the game now as part of your membership on both Xbox consoles and PC respectively. Today's first impression video has been based around 10 hours of single player and a couple more jumping in with a friend on multiplayer. My entire playtest was done on PC, running the game on the highest settings. The setting is clear as it is inviting. Think Honey I Shrunk the Kids meets Pixar's A Bug's Life. Set in what we presume to be an unsuspecting human's back garden, Grounded puts you in the shoes of a plucky teenager that has for some reason, and at this stage it's unknown whether the teenager gave consent of such experiments, has been shrunken down or miniaturized in some kind of school science experiment gone wrong. Tiny blades of grass now tower over you like the enchanting bamboo forests of Japan, or dandelion flowers reaching the skies like an old English oak tree. Even litter and trash, such as disposed juice boxes and Tetra Pak cartons, will now stand tall and imposing, similar to the Arc de Triomphe in the French capital. All of this is achieved alongside an incredibly playful and colourful cartoon art style. To return to an early reference, this game really feels like you're inside of a Disney's Pixar movie. You will have to explore, craft and fight your way through the garden to survive the perilous dangers of being around 2 centimeters tall. At this stage it is unknown what the main story arc will be, as not much in the way of story details have been revealed, but I'm sure it will involve questing our way to returning to our full-size counterparts. Grounded falls into the crafting survival bucket and doesn't really do anything new with the genre. Just as the grandfather of the genre, Minecraft, set a new standard almost 10 years ago, Grounded just kind of follows suit. Picking up stones and plucking leaves of seedling plants will gain you basic materials that are then needed to craft the likes of tools and weapons such as axes and spears. Most survival players will feel at home here. Once you have these tools you can then gather further resources such as planks of grass, which then can be used to build your base. Managing hydration and hunger is a staple of most survival games, and once again there's no difference here either. You will have to forage for young mushrooms or hunt down smaller bugs such as the irritating gnats for meat chunks that you can then later cook on your campfire. Hydration I found to be a little more annoying. Methods of staying hydrated seem to be inconsistent in the early game despite always being thirsty. Finding fresh droplets of water either hanging off tall blades of grass or randomly on the floor can be infuriating at times, but the game clearly intends for you to build equipment to help satisfy that need. However, I found the materials needed to craft things such as a water skin, dew collectors and water reservoirs were a little out of reach to perhaps the inexperienced or players that like a little more direction. As I mentioned earlier, players familiar to survival games will feel right at home. Part of this is because it feels like Obsidian has turned to some of the more popular survival games out there to pull inspiration from. Cutting down blades of grass feels like cutting down trees in the forest. A few whacks of your axe and the blade of grass will fall down before conveniently splitting itself into planks that can then be carried on your shoulder back to base. The crafting UI has been displayed in a quick action wheel similar to the extended action wheels of Ark Survival Evolved. Even the AI of the enemies and NPCs feels like something that we've encountered before in the genre. Ants, for example, make up for the large proportion of the non-playable characters in-game. They will follow you around, sniff out what you're doing, and God forbid you upset them by picking up items that interest them, as they will turn on you. Picking a fight with a worker ant will most likely result in their bigger, older brothers, the soldier ants, come and pay you a visit at your base where you may or may not be so prepared. And how have we made it this far into the video without mentioning the spiders? I will never know. Touted as the main enemy or the big bad beast that you and your friends will want to work together to take down, the spiders in Grounded are huge territorial predators that will attack you on sight. For those that suffer with arachnophobia, the game does allow you from the first boot up to switch the spiders off, not to reenact any actual nightmares that you probably once had. Encountering these in single player seems like an instant funeral. With almost a one-hit kill without armor, avoiding these creatures seems to be your best bet. Even on multiplayer, if your team is unprepared, you will most likely be thrust into a loop of dying, collecting your bag, the spider is guarding your bag, dying, collecting your bag, the spider is guarding your bag, dying, collecting your bag, the spider is guarding. But as long as you are lucky enough not to get caught in that cycle, the spider encounters really leave a mark on your journey, leaving your senses at high alert, thinking that it could return at any point. Perhaps now you are trying to think of ways to build your base at an elevation to avoid the creepy crawlies on the ground. In terms of what's available in the early access version of Grounded, depending on your playstyle and why you enjoy playing survival games, there may not be enough for you here just yet. The main story is usually the last aspect that is finished and uploaded into the game when it comes to survival games in early access. This saves players of the early access version experiencing a half-baked feel to the game, or of course keeping certain story elements for all players to explore when the game is released with version 1.0. So much of Grounded follows the same process here. The few so-called story beats that are in the game so far can be completed within 30 minutes. Again, players without that natural exploratory trait may struggle to see where the quote-unquote game is here. The base building, however, looks promising. Even at this stage in the game where there's some useful building structures that can be used to build a cutesy looking camps or elevated tree houses using scaffolding made out of dandelion stems. For those master builders out there, square and triangle foundations are a default from the get-go. The game really has used the miniature world to great effect. Plant fibre is used as rope, leaves can be used for wall coverings and armour, even bug and insect parts that have fallen from your foes can be used as advanced weapons or home decorations. You can only imagine how much fun the development team had whilst brainstorming some of these concepts. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy what Grounded has presented so far. I just think to get new players into the game and into the genre, there's got to be a little bit more meat to that bone. So let's look at the overall potential for Grounded. The style and appearance is already up there with the biggest survival games. This game looks clean, crisp and colourful enough for you to run through the world with glee. The mechanics for the game have a solid foundation. The builders will want to build the biggest treehouse. The hunters will want to display the head of every spider they dominate. The game has a self-awareness. From the writing to the humour, it isn't taking itself too seriously, which is a good thing. It feels like an old school Rare Studios game where they constantly poke fun at themselves. As long as Obsidian treats this game, along with its players, with the attention and care it requires during this gestation period, we could have a future games as a service dark horse in our hands. I imagine the game will garner a good, dedicated and core player base, similar to that of Sea of Thieves after its initial release. However, above all else, Grounded's style and environment will most likely set it as one of the most accessible survival games out there. Moving forward, I would love to see enemy encounters play out more strategically. Taking on a spider, for example, should be an event that your whole tribe gathers and prepares for. I would love a Monster Hunter World style mission here. Different spiders would have their own tactics against the tiny teen tearaways, just as the humans on the other side of the controllers would need to form their own tactics against the eight-legged freaks. I think trapping and taming creatures could make a huge impact and quite a unique selling point for the game. Now, I may be caught out here as I'm fairly certain something like this has already been announced for the game within future developments, but looking back at a possible inspiration, Ark Survival Evolved, that is a game where taming and training dinosaurs for your own gain is pretty much a requirement, both to progress the game's story, but also to assist you in the grind that is resource collecting. I can really see the game using elements like this in the future, taming worker ants for quick traversal, bombardier beetles being used to drop quote-unquote bombs onto enemies, centipedes being used as a bus to travel and move your whole squad at once. The possibilities are endless. Random encounter events would really elevate that miniature world feel. So for example, the back garden to which the open world is played in is attached to a house. That house probably has normal sized humans living in it. So why couldn't we have random events where giants cause earthquakes? Or perhaps a family dog comes sniffing around, displacing player bases and digging holes, exposing previously inaccessible dungeons and caves. For all the concerns and comments I have made against the game, there is something to remember here. The game is not complete. The term early access has a lot of negative connotations towards it because in the past we have seen games cancelled from this stage, even where players have already put their money down on the table. I honestly don't believe that that is the case here. I think about how Obsidian Entertainment has dealt with projects in the past, how carefully they have worked with existing IPs such as Fallout and South Park. Now they have their own IP, along with the might and magnitude of Uncle Phil's Xbox Game Studios behind them. I think we're about to see a new era for Obsidian Entertainment. So to conclude, I can't wait to see what the game brings in the future. I find the setting truly enchanting and will be one of the main reasons I return to the game once new updates land. I also look forward to the incredibly complex bases and stories that come from the community in the coming weeks.